Welcome in, folks. Happy holidays. It's about time to talk about the CFB playoff. We're 2 days away. Notre Dame, Indiana kicks it off on Friday. So, I figure, let's break it down for you. Let's see what takes I have for the CFB playoff. And I assure you, you'll like what you hear. So let's jump into it, shall we? So, first matchup here. We got Clemson and Texas. I've watched Texas all year. And at a certain point after that Quinn Ewers injury, they never got back to normal. And I mean this, I really don't like their offense at all. But if we learned anything in that Georgia game, it's that defense can play ball. That defense is legitimate. And I think if you were looking at this bracket, you'd be like, Clemson, they're always in the mix. They're always in the mix. They seem like a good team for an upset. But in my mind, I don't see it happening. I just don't see it happening. I think Texas shuts them down. And I don't think Clemson's that good this year. I think they beat an SMU team. They almost gave it up, too. I think they're prone to errors, and I think Texas squeaks this one out based on defense alone. That's it. I think it would be a nice little upset, but I don't see it happening. So we have Texas moving on in that first round. Now we come down here. Next matchup we're looking at, Tennessee, Ohio State in that 8-9 matchup at the Horseshoe for Ohio State home game. Now, Nico, Tennessee's quarterback, I still don't see everything we need to see from him yet. He's supposed to be a great prospect in all of this. Redshirt freshman. This is a big game. And I know he played in their bowl game last year, but that was Iowa. Iowa who couldn't score. Ohio State is going to be pissed off in this game. They're going to be very pissed this whole playoff. And I'm going to be honest with you, I think they steamroll Tennessee up in Ohio. I don't think they can compete with them. I haven't been very impressed with Tennessee at all this year. Georgia beat them pretty handedly. They beat Alabama, who's definitely had a bad year. Jalen Milroe is not that great. So I'm going to pick Ohio State in this one, too. We're going favorites for the first two. I hate to see it, but that's just the truth. Then we come to this SMU-Penn State game. Penn State, great year. But they are known with James Franklin as head coach to flop these big games. And this is a game that they could flop. Jennings in SMU is a legitimate threat. He's a legitimate threat, and they know no one's counting them in. They know no one thinks they can win this game. Penn State doesn't think they can win. But I'm going to tell you what. I think SMU wins this game. I like their fight at the end of the Clemson game. I like their quarterback a lot. And I don't like Drew Aller. I don't know. He's slow. I don't really love what he did. And who has Penn State beat this year? Who has Penn State beat? No one. They really have not beaten anyone that great, honestly. Ohio State beat them. Oregon just beat them. And that game wasn't close. They might have only lost by 8, but that game wasn't close. Oregon was just right down their throat every time. And I think explosive offenses can beat them. Now, the cold weather, that's definitely a factor up at Happy Valley. That's going to be a factor for sure. But for right now, I like SMU. I like the underdog here. I think they're hated, and I think James Franklin's going to find a way to screw this one up. I really do. So I'm going to punch in SMU for my first upset of the bracket in the 6-11 matchup. Then we come to Indiana, Notre Dame, the Battle of Indiana. Indiana's had a great year. They have. But let's be honest. They haven't played anyone either. They got here. It was pretty much given to them. They didn't have to play in the Big Ten championship. Didn't really have to play anyone until Ohio State, and we all saw what happened in that game. I don't know. Indiana just... Now, Notre Dame, along with Penn State and James Franklin, I've watched them my whole life, been a fan my whole life. They love to screw these games up. But I really think Indiana is just a lower class opponent. They're just lower class. They shouldn't really be here because we saw what happened when they played a real opponent. They got destroyed. Lost by 23 points to Ohio State. So I'm going to punch in Notre Dame pretty easily. It's supposed to snow on Friday, and I think Notre Dame just kind of runs it over them. Just rolls and rolls and rolls. I don't love Riley Leonard. I don't think he's a great QB. And it will come back to haunt them in the later rounds. But I think right now, Indiana's just not a good opponent. So, Notre Dame, Fighting Irish, moving on. So, we're in the round of 8 here. Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, first game, Texas, Arizona State. Everyone's probably thinking, Texas, easy road. You get Clemson, who's having a down year, and then you get Arizona State team, who no one thinks anything of. But I like Arizona State. I do. They put up points. I think they could put up points against this defense, too. And if they could put up points against this defense, this Texas offense has not shown any life recently, and they cannot compete with them. The running back out of Arizona State, he could play. Should have been in the Heisman race. And Texas, they're kind of falling flat for me. I love their defense, but their offense is not it. I'm going to go with Arizona State here in a crazy pick. If you told me 2 months ago that I'd pick Arizona State, I'd call you crazy. But go Sun Devils. Forks up. Is this what they do? Forks up. All right? Now, this for me was one of the games of the year here. Rose Bowl game here. Ohio State, Oregon. Earlier in the year, Oregon wins by 3. I think that was one of the best games of the year. And I like Oregon. They're a good team. They're a feisty team. Oregon is. Dylan Gabriel looks great back there. This one is really difficult. I'm not going to lie. I don't know where I'm going with this one. This one is a tough one. I think Ohio State's hungry in this CFP playoff. But are they hungry enough to beat the Ducks? The undefeated Ducks. I'm going to put in Oregon. Nah, let's go Ohio State. We're going to Ohio State. I think they're going to be hungry. I think they've been laughed at for the last month after that loss to Michigan. Laughed at. And Oregon's going to have some time off, which I don't necessarily think is good because they're cooking and no one can beat them. I don't like when an undefeated team has this much time off, while Ohio State can gain momentum against this Tennessee team. They can really gain some momentum here. And Ohio State, Will Howard, that running game's good. They have a good defense. I think Ryan Day, he's coaching for his job. This means a lot to Ohio State here. And I think they win. I do think they win and advance to the semifinals. So then we come down to the matchup that no one's expecting, the Verbo Fiesta Bowl, SMU versus Boise State. Listen, Ginty, I think he got robbed, but I also don't think Boise State's a very good team at all. They have him, and that's about it. And that's not going to get you very far. They should not be a bye team at all. Having them as the 3 seed in this kind of shows a flaw in the CFP playoff, and I think they will fix that in the future. But for right now, that's how it is. And I think SMU, Jennings is great, and I think their team, they've played better competition. They're more ready for this game. I think Clemson was a good warm-up for this playoff, and I think SMU advances to the semifinals. I really do. Boise State, just not great. You take away Ginty, they're done. They're done. So, unless they come up with something very creative, we know Boise State in the Fiesta Bowl, we've seen it before, Statue of Liberty. But this time, I don't think we're seeing any of that. So let's go to the Sugar Bowl. I have bad memories of Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl. Shout out Jamarcus Russell. Shout out Brady Quinn. That game got ugly. Very ugly. Very ugly. And I think this one does too. Listen, I know Georgia might be without Carson Beck, but I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I don't think Carson Beck's very good at all. I think he's bad, actually. He's going to cause more problems than good things. And that Stockton kid, he could play. When he came in that game, he was not scared. That's for sure. He was playing well. And I think they look better with Stockton playing. And that defense, listen, I've learned my lesson. I've done it for years and years, Alabama, Georgia. I look at the game and I'm like, maybe this team can do it. Maybe this team can do it in a big moment against these juggernauts. And until someone does it, I'm just going to keep rolling with the juggernauts. Alabama, Georgia, give me them. Give me them every day. Listen, I want Notre Dame to win this game. I do. But Georgia is Georgia. And until someone proves that they're not Georgia, they're going to keep being Georgia. All right? So Dogs into the semifinal. Let's go back up top here. Ohio State, Arizona State. This is when the run ends. The run ends. Ohio State's going to roll through Arizona State. They're going to absolutely roll through them. And Arizona State, this will help them with recruiting, will help them in the future. They won a game against Texas, but Ohio State is moving on to the finals. And I'm just going to say that right there. And down here in the Capital One Orange Bowl, SMU, you got by with some easy games. Penn State was tough, but you've never played a Georgia. You've never even come close to playing a Georgia. Clemson was your closest, and Georgia beat them 34-3 at the beginning of the year. So, yeah, it's probably going to go badly for you Mustangs down there in Texas. Georgia rolls. They absolutely roll. I don't care who's at quarterback. It's just not a game. It's not a game. Never will be. And then we get a good matchup in the CFP playoff. I love this matchup. And in a down year for Georgia, I think Carson Beck's probably back by then. We'll see what they do there. Ohio State, great run. This saves Ryan Day's job. All that. And I think this is a very close game. Very, very close game. But I think Georgia wins. Georgia definitely wins that game. The Dogs back on top. I think we have another dynasty on our hands. I don't see any team beating them. I like their road for sure. I mean, their road down there is not great. I mean, Notre Dame, Penn State. I don't trust either of those teams. I've been burnt before. Just don't trust either of them. The top region is more difficult for sure. Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, all great teams. I think Arizona State pulls that upset, even though seeding wise it's not an upset, but we all know it's an upset. And Oregon and Ohio State, I mean, I might come back to regret that. I'm not going to lie, but Ohio State, I think they have something to prove, and I think they're angry, and they're a good team. They're a good team. They held Penn State to 13 points. They've played Oregon well already. We already saw that. They lost by 3. And it's tough to beat a team twice. It's just tough to beat a team, especially a good team like Ohio State. Tough to beat them twice. And I think Ohio State beats them. And I think they make it all the way. But the Dogs are back. They're pissed off about last year. Pissed off they got let off. They probably win it all last year if they get put in it. And this year, Georgia will be back on top. SEC will be back on top. No Michigan-Washington games like that. SEC back on top. And that's my bracket right there. I'd follow it if I were you. Got the intel, got the research, got the players. This is where the truth is, okay? In this bracket, you follow this, you win your pools. I'll be following it for this whole winter little playoff thing. December 20th to January 20th. This is the truth. Go Dogs. Hopefully Notre Dame makes it close at some point. But it's Georgia. Georgia's back on top. And that's the Taker's Take. And I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe, like. We'll see you next time.